It's not just the middle, so you have to rearrange your data set from smallest, from the smallest values to the highest values. So you have to rearrange them first, then and then you choose a middle number, right, from least to greatest. Good. So yes, it's the middle number, but if your data is not in order, we cannot just choose a number in the middle. So if I look at this number, okay, this is the data set given to me. It's not in order. So I'm not going to choose a number in the middle and say, this is my median. So I have to rearrange it. So what we're going to need to do to find the quartile is Q1, Q2, and Q3. What it does is it's divide the data into 3 different data sets. And we're going to focus on the medians. We're going to find the medians of those 3 data sets. Okay. So step number 1, we're going to rearrange this one. So I'm going to start with a 5. I know that's the lowest. Then I have 7. Then I have 9, 10, 11, 13. Notice I keep cross out the values, so I'm not going to repeat the values myself. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. There are 2 of those. 20, 21, and I need space to write all of them, so I'm going to do this. 17, 18, 18, 20, 21, and 37. Okay, so that's step number 1. I rearranged my data set. So based on your knowledge, based on what you remember, I need you to identify the median from this data set for me. So we rearrange this. So what is the median for this one? I need you to tell me. 15. Okay, so this is the median. 15. Good. For this lesson, the median, so we're going to find Q1, which is quartile 1, and we're going to need Q2 is quartile 2, and this is Q3. So the median, another name in statistics, is called Q2. That is the quartile 2. What it does is saying that is the median for the whole data set, which is Q2. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we split it up into 2 sides, the lower half and the upper half. Okay. So I would call this as the lower half. So we're going to figure out what is Q1 and Q3. And I'm going to ask you to do practice in a minute. Lower half, and this I call the upper half. Okay, so Q1 is the median of the lower half, and Q3 is the median of the upper half. So basically, we try to find the median of the whole data set, the median of the lower half, and the median of the upper half. That's what we're trying to do, okay? So let's look at the lower half. Can someone tell me what is the median of that lower half? What values that is? 10. Okay, so this is the median, so which another name that we're going to call is Q1. Okay. All right, can someone guess what is Q3 then? 18. Okay, 18, which is the middle number right here, Q3. Perfect. So how do I know how to find the median? Again, we look for the middle number. How we know? We can just there are 3. This is 3. The 10 is the middle number. If we run into a situation where we have 2 numbers, after we cross everything, we end up with 2, then add them up and divide by 2. Okay, so that is how we're going to calculate the quartiles of the data set. It's not too bad, right? What this is saying is that, so it's not too difficult to identify Q1, Q2, and Q3, but the interpretation, like we need to understand what that number is saying. Okay, so Q1, what it say is that Q1 is 1, I'm going to write this in a different color. So Q1, what it's saying is that about 1/4, or about 25%. So this one is talking about the test score of the employee. This is about test score. So 1/4 of the employee score 10 or less. So that's what it's saying right here, from 10 less. This is 1/4 of the data set. It's going to be 10 or less. Okay. And then when we look at, so you think about this, is 1/4, 1/2, and then so I'm gonna use this pointer. So 10 right here, the Q1 represent 1/4. Because if you split your data, it's gonna be you think about this, if you split your data into like 4 sets, it's like 100%, right? So it starts from 5 to 37. So if I split this up, it's going to be in 4 sets. So if you look over here from 5 to 10, I'm going to highlight this. From here to here, that is the first quarter. If you split, it's like 4 equal segments, if you think of this way. This is the second segment. This one is third. You see how I split it up into 4 equal parts? Okay. All right. So from 10 down to the left, that is the first quarter. That's the, if you think about this, I have 4 equal parts. And the first one from 10 or below, that's just the quarter, right? Then that's a good question, because that will lead to the next one if I have to interpret Q2. What is the fraction that I should use for the next? Q2 is 15 right here. What do you think? It's about what? If we're going to use a fraction, the whole thing as a whole. So 15 will be a half. Good. So that's about 1/2. Okay. Of the score, or the employee score, are 15 or less. That's what it's saying. Okay. All right. Can someone guess what I would say for Q3? What is the quarter? What is the number, the fraction that I'm going to use for Q3? We know Q3 is 18. So we have 1/4, 1/2. What should be the values for the next one? About how many? Anyone would like to guess? Thank you, Diego. About 3/4 of the score is going to be 18 or less. Okay, so that's kind of tell you, if we think about how is this important, is that if we look at the SAT that you took, or we look at your GPA, and people are going to compare, I'm like, okay, you belong to the least, like the bottom of the data, or you're like, okay, with this group of student, the student is in the 1/4 of the population, or like a half of the population, or 3/4. So another one, sometimes instead of 1/4, if we switch to percentage, the 1/4 is about 25. It's not about, it is 25%, right? 1/2 is 50%. And 3/4 is 75%. That kind of give you an idea where you are compared with the population. So if you took the test and you got that score, then we'll say, okay, this kid is fall in the 25%. So remember how you took the SAT and they will say, this is your percentile? This is how they calculate that. They tell you where you are compared with the population, with the general populations, okay? Like, I'm in the 25%. That is mean that's where you are. I'm like, I'm in the 75%. That's mean you did better than 75% of the people. That's what it's saying, okay? We're not gonna look at the highest value because that means you did really well, and that's not what we're gonna focus on, okay? So Q1, we're gonna calculate Q1, we're gonna calculate Q2, calculate Q3, and then interpret that. Any questions for me? Okay, so this is the one that I'm going to ask you to do practice. If possible, please take out a piece of paper. I'm going to ask you to try this. I'll leave the screen up for you. If you need to take a picture of the note, do so. Once we're done with this lesson, I will also upload this notes for you, so you should have it in Schoology, okay? So if you don't have questions, this is the one that I want you to practice, okay? This is the tuition cost in thousands of dollars for 25 liberal arts, okay? We're not going to use it for now. I'm going to ask you, I will show you how to use a calculator or the Google Sheet to figure out first, second, and third quartiles. But before we do that, I'm going to ask you to do this by hand. I know there's 25 number. The only thing is annoying is you have to list them in order, okay? So go ahead and start. Step number 1, I remind you, is to rearrange them in order. Once you're done, the practice, don't do it like on 2 separate sheets, just do it in the same sheet, because I will ask you to take pictures and turn it into me later, okay? All right, so go ahead and try this practice. So what I want you to do is calculate Q1, calculate Q2, Q3, and then interpret what does that mean. So I'm going to zoom in. For you, okay? Do I need to go back to the previous screen so that you can take pictures so you have your notes in front of you? Let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you, if you don't ask me, then I'll leave this on. I'll give you about 5 minutes, 6 minutes to work on it.